Thank you so much. We are so excited to be here with you guys today. Do you have the clicker? Or is this it? Sorry, guys. This one. Okay, awesome. Technology. Um, so, last, about 3 years ago, I attended my first UCAP conference. And at that conference, that was the first time that I had heard the word recovery. And it changed my life. Thanks to UCAP, it opened up doors that I didn't know that I needed to walk through. And I really, really hope to provide someone in this audience with that same experience. So today we're going to be talking about how debunking myths can help parents and teens work together. Let me see if I can figure out how to use this little black box of mystery. Okay, awesome. Okay, I can do this, yes. Okay, so there are a lot of myths out there about pornography, about parents' roles, about what teens believe. And today, my portion and my goal of this talk is to talk about healthy versus unhealthy sexuality. A major myth: if I'm not using pornography or having unsafe sex, then I am sexually healthy. I'll admit that it hasn't been that recently since I first asked myself, am I sexually healthy? That's probably not something that we have thought to ask ourselves. But I'm hoping to change that for all of you today. So this cute little picture, this is when I was 11 years old. You know, you have those friends who you're taking a selfie with them and they just don't know exactly where to look. You guys know what I'm talking about? Where they just always look like they're not looking at the camera. That's me. So you can probably tell which one I am. I'm the one not looking at the camera. I was 11 years old when I first saw pornography, or when I came across it on the internet. I stumbled upon it. And that's the same year that this picture was taken. I was curious. I was scared about what I saw. I didn't even comprehend what I was seeing. I literally had no idea or level of understanding what I was seeing, but I was intrigued. And I wanted to understand. I wanted to know more. And as I kept stumbling upon more and more pornography, and I kept seeking out answers for what I was seeing in these terms that I was reading online, it eventually became something that I couldn't stop doing, because not only did I become intrigued by it, but I was becoming aroused by it, and I didn't understand what that meant. I didn't understand what I was feeling, but I knew that it felt good, and I wanted more. And it escalated and escalated through my teenage years up until my freshman year of college, when it got to its absolute worst of at least an hour a day. And so I want to help parents and teens understand what you all can do to support each other. For a long time, I label myself as an addict. Zach will talk to us more about what that means. But I saw myself as an us versus them mentality. There's me, the person who struggles with pornography, and then there's the other people who don't understand anything. Or the other way around. Maybe you are the parent or person who doesn't struggle, and you say, it's me who doesn't struggle, and then these people who have this problem that I need to solve. My goal today is to get rid of that thinking. This is no longer us versus them. The truth is, we are all on a spectrum striving to be sexually healthy. So let me talk about what that means. Okay, there we go. Okay, so let's talk about our physical health for a second. If I said, I don't eat greasy foods, therefore I am physically healthy. Or, I don't drink alcohol, therefore I am physically healthy. We know that that's not true. There's a lot more that goes into physical health besides abstaining from one single thing. So that's where we come to the spectrum of healthy sexuality. Let's see. I've asked myself, how can I be sexually healthy? 3 years ago, when I entered recovery, this was my journey, not just of overcoming pornography addiction, but of becoming sexually healthy. Kristen Hodson, she's a very renowned sexual therapist. She has come up with these values for healthy sexuality. And it would be a good idea for you to take out your phones and to snap a picture of that slide, because you are going to want it. You're going to need it. Body image, health and hygiene, body parts and sexual development, all of these things, emotion, pleasure, boundaries and safety like consent, relationships, all of those things contribute to being sexually healthy. So this brings us to our next myth. Oh, yep. You're welcome. Okay, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. Myth. Sex is a topic that should only be discussed behind closed doors, if at all. Now, parents, the fact that you are here means that you know that this is a myth. You know that this isn't true, just by the fact that you are here at this conference. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people from your generation who do not understand that. Just because it's a product of the times. So as we move forward in our journey with understanding how pornography addiction is harmful, we also need to understand that that comes with healthy exposure and communication about healthy sexuality, right? So the truth is, conversations about healthy sexuality should happen frequently and in a safe environment. Let me go back. Sorry. Okay. So when I was growing up, my parents, they are amazing. I love them so much. I had a wonderful, wonderful home. And of course, like any family, we had our issues. But my parents were awesome. And unfortunately, they just did not have the tools that we have today. And so growing up without the ability to talk to my parents about what I was experiencing was pretty harmful. However, it's you can change that. You all have the power right now to change that, to provide something different for your teen. So that brings us to our next myth. My teen will learn about sex in their anatomy in their health class at school. So, I heard a laugh out there. Yes, you're right. No, they won't. um, or if we do learn that in school, it's not everything that you would want us to know. And to be honest, as in my own experience, I wasn't knowledgeable about many basic facts of the female anatomy, for instance, until just very recently. So the truth is, parents must be the primary educator of sexual health. And remember the slide that we took a picture of. So sexual health doesn't just mean teaching the names of body parts, right? Although that is very critical. It also means teaching them about boundaries, about healthy relationships, about hygiene. All of those things must be frequently communicated. And that brings me to my next point. Call it what it is. When I have my daughter one day, I will teach her that she has eyes and a nose, a mouth, 2 hands, and a vulva. She's going to learn those things. There are a lot of people in this room who don't know what that word means. And so, what I invite you to do is parents and teens, parents and kids, sit down together and learn. Learn that anatomy. Parents, teach your children the basic anatomy. Avoid the nicknames. When we are able to provide these terms to our teens and to our kids, we are empowering them. When they are able to go to a doctor and say, "Doctor, I think that there is a problem with my vulva," we'll use that word again. That empowers them to take control of their bodies. It empowers them to get the help that they need, to be informed. Remember that knowledge is power. And so if you're ever afraid to talk to your kids about these issues with sexuality or with pornography, just remember that you are giving them power. So I want to talk about my own experience. Unhealthy sexuality. I wish I could point a little laser, but we're not in that room. So the unhealthy sexuality side of the screen, that is where I started out on, I guess from birth probably, just not having the education or the knowledge that I needed. And of course, when I was incredibly addicted to pornography, I was all the way on that side of the screen, right, on the unhealthy sexuality side. And then I learned about body image. I tried to understand and deal with my own issues with that. I learned about health and hygiene. I learned about boundaries and safety. I learned about my emotions, my own shame that surrounds the topic of sex, the fear that I have about talking with sex. As I learned those things, I moved closer to healthy sexuality. Notice I didn't say when I stopped looking at pornography or when I stopped being addicted to pornography, that's when I became sexually healthy. No. Although that obviously is our goal and important in obtaining healthy sexuality, but our main goal is to incorporate all of those values of healthy sexuality. We are all on this spectrum. Not just people who are dealing with issues with pornography, but mom, dad, brother, sister, you are all on this spectrum. All of you have the goal to work towards healthy sexuality. I want you to know, parents, that it's never too late. It's never too late to talk to your children. And teens, I want you to know that it's never too late to start trusting your parents. It's never too late to reach out and connect with them. Both of you, parents and teens. We all remember what it was like to be a teenager. It can be very rebellious and stubborn and, all the eye rolling. But I also remember what it was like to feel isolated and to feel scared and ashamed and to feel abandoned. I remember that. But there are resources, and those are the people in your lives. Yes, I was addicted to pornography, and I am currently in recovery. But I have had an amazing life. I have been happy. I have been able to do amazing things. Pornography addiction does not have to slow us down. It does not have to be something that ruins relationships, but it is our job to reach out. This picture right here is 17-year-old Cassie. 17-year-old Cassie was just a child. She's just a child still. And she was doing amazing things, but at the same time, she was watching hours of pornography a week. But I'm telling you this because no matter where you are, if you've never seen pornography, or if you're in a similar situation as what I was in when I was a teenager, there's hope. And it all starts with connection. It all starts with trusting your parents and trusting your teens and reaching out to them with love and opening up that communication. So now I am going to turn the time over to my friend Zachary, and he's going to talk to you more about the nature of addiction.
Isn't she wonderful? Thank you, Cassie. Let's see. I'm going to have to put a timer up here because these two people right here made fun of me one time. They're like, you talk way too much. And so I have the timer going. Now I know exactly how much time I have up here. I'm so excited to be here with all of you. And I just want to let you know how much I love you, especially you teens out there. They mentioned a little earlier in the little bio, something like that, I'm a seminary student teacher. And for those of you who don't know what that is, I'm a religious educator, and I teach at a high school in Orem. And I once told my students, I was like, man, you don't know how much I love all of you in this classroom. And one of them was like, how can you love me? Like, you don't know anything about me. But the truth is that we can say that we love you and how much we care about you, and the people around you can say how much they love you because they know enough about you. And I know enough about some of the people in this room that feel like they struggle, that feel like they just can't quite get there. And that goes to parents too. And so my goal right now is to be able to help you to understand a little bit more about addiction and pornography use. Unfortunately, sometimes we think about addiction, pornography addiction, as you're either addicted or you're not. Just like that us versus them that Cassie kind of mentioned right there. But as she said, we're on this healthy sexuality spectrum right here. There's not just this once and done kind of mentality going on. And so that brings me to my first myth that a lot of people kind of think about is that exposure equals addiction, that I've seen it, and pornography has these hooks, and it's grabbed right onto me, and that I am now addicted to it immediately. And some of you parents might be thinking that too, about teens and things that, oh man, my teen's seen this, and so obviously they become an addict. And we get into this spot where we feel despair. I love this right here. I has it. Like, we feel down. We feel like there's nothing left for us because addiction has a stigma behind it. Being addicted is a common thing, but we see, and I've worked at an addiction recovery center, we see these people and we're like, wow, they live terrible lives. And that's not necessarily true. But the truth is there's more to pornography use than just exposure, okay, being exposed to that. So I want to define for you what exposure means. And it's very simple. It's coming in contact with something. We're exposed to things all the time, okay? Particularly, I was just in the public restroom, and how much bacteria is in there, I do not know. I was exposed to that, but that doesn't mean that I'm automatically going to get sick, right? Same thing with the media that we consume. There's so much media bombarding us every which way, some of it pornographic, but that doesn't mean that it becomes meaningful to us. It doesn't mean that it has to drag us down. It depends on the context in which it was received, in which it was viewed. And in order to, that was the wrong button. And just to kind of clarify that, the majority of children and teens that are exposed to pornography are exposed to it by accident. They come across it. This is me. Try to pick the one picture that I felt like described me best as a teenager, and this was it. My Vote for Pedro t-shirt. I don't even know what I'm doing here. I think I was just joking that I'm going to church in this outfit or something like that. But this is me at the age of 11. Okay, you've heard the age of 11. This is the average age that most teenagers are exposed to pornography. And this is the time that I was exposed to pornography that became meaningful to me. Sorry, I'm going to rephrase that. That became the downhill to my experience, I guess. I was exposed to pornographic material way before this. But this is the time where it started to affect me, and I'm going to tell you why. Here's just another picture. My family moved from Arizona to Nevada. Okay, we had no family members living in Nevada. Moved to Henderson, Nevada, 2 weeks before school started. I'm 11 years old. We're going into middle school, and I'm sure there are middle schoolers out there that understand. Middle school is not very easy, especially because I had zero time to make any friends. And because this was my personality, and I loved to answer questions in class, it became a target for bullying. And this is a time before everybody had smartphones, and I know that cyberbullying is a big thing. I was physically bullied back then. I remember one time I was sitting at the lunch table, and this kid was just pestering me. He's just using all this foul language, and he took my head and he smashed it into the lunch table. And I remember thinking, man, my life sucks. And I would go home, and my parents would see this, and they'd do their best to comfort me. And I have wonderful parents. But I did make the mistake myself of isolating myself. I spent a lot of time in my room reading books, which isn't a bad thing, but I stayed away from people. One day, I was searching the internet, and a new website that I'd recently heard about, just recently came out, called YouTube, was up, and I'd heard like you could see these funny cat videos, people failing, doing all these fun things, and I was like, yeah, maybe this will cheer me up. And so I was on there, and I'd been on YouTube several times, but one day, during a very particularly harmful day, I came across some mild pornographic content. Okay, I didn't even really know what it was, but it made me feel good, and I liked it. But then I didn't really go back to it. I was like, oh, it made me feel better today. But then a week later when I had a harder time, same thing. I went back to it. I remembered what I had, and I went back to it over and over and over, and it started to become more frequent. And I used it more often, and I started searching different types of things. It became an emotional coping mechanism, which is what pornography is. And it's a way to emotionally cope with the things in our lives. And so it does depend on the context in which you receive pornography. Now, I keep pressing the wrong button. I lived a normal life, like a teenager. Sorry about that. Here's me with my little sister on the beach. I was in a band. I had good friends and stuff, but all behind this was this deepening, darkening time for me. And it began to spiral over and over and over until the point where I got to the point where all I could think about was the next time I was going to use pornography. Addiction is described as a psychological and physical inability to stop consuming a chemical, drug, activity, or substance, even though it is causing harm, psychological or physical. And it was harming my life. Now, this was one point of time in my life. This is the low point. But I do want you to know that it took time to get there, just as it takes time to come back. This word addiction, as I said before, is kind of stigmatized. And so I want to give a little bit of an invitation right now to stop using the word addiction and use it in the appropriate circumstances. From what we have been described, if you need that back, I'll come back. This is pathological inability to do anything about it. And it's a real thing, but not everybody has this. And it's dangerous sometimes when we label ourselves or others as addicts. And so I just wanted to invite you to use it in appropriate circumstances, especially if there's been a medical professional, a therapist or something that has said, yes, this is an addiction. And so use it in appropriate circumstances here. Now, luckily, I have a happy ending to my story. But we're going to move on to the next myth so I can tell you more about it. The next myth is that they should just be able to stop using pornography. Okay? Please, just stop. Just stop. I can just stop. And about this time where things became really, really difficult for me, I started hearing this message over and over. Just stop. Just stop it. Don't use it anymore. And so I was like, okay, I must be able to do that. And as I went about my days, I guess in high school, about this time, I started to count days. I made it 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. I messed up. Okay, back at 0. 1 day, 2 days. Messed up. I went 7 days. I went a whole week. Messed up. And I started to get frustrated. I remember one particular time I made it 4 weeks, a whole month. And I was feeling on top of the world. And then I made a mistake. And I'm like, I'm not over it. Obviously, I'm an idiot. Keep doing this over and over and over. I must just stop. And I came close to giving up. And that's what comes with this please just stop mentality is immediate perfection is required for this. And now I'm not knocking anybody that's been able to go cold turkey. It happens. People are a lot better than I am. But for the majority of us that struggle with this, it's not that easy. You've heard it many times. Recovery is not a destination, it's a journey. I don't love that particularly myself, so I wanted to change that a little bit for my truth for this myth. Healthy sexuality is not an event, it's a lifestyle, because even journeys have destinations, by the way. It's a lifestyle, it's a way of living. And this is the mentality that I came to eventually by an awesome analogy that I'd like to share with you. It's 2011, and religious educator Brad Wilcox gives a talk to BYU students entitled, "His Grace is Sufficient." And he gives this analogy about how life is like learning to play the piano. And learning to play the piano, I just saw the time, so now I'm like, the only options aren't playing at Carnegie Hall or quitting, being immediately perfect and amazing at it or not. It takes time and practice. You have to learn Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star before you can move on. And this same, too, is with healthy sexuality. You can't just expect immediate perfection. We have to learn. We have to practice healthy sexuality. And this practicing comes through sometimes making mistakes. And those mistakes come. Now, this analogy of this piano is not an excuse to make mistakes. A pianist, in order to play a piece correctly, must play every note in the correct order in which they are presented to them. Any mistake is unacceptable. But in practicing and learning how to do this, we may make mistakes. And so when somebody sees somebody make a mistake on the piano, do you thwack them across the knuckles and say, "You need to get better at this"? No. At least they shouldn't. That was my grandma's experience when she learned to play the piano. But no, it requires good teachers. These are my parents. We're wonderful teachers. It requires some good friends, some people to surround us with that are also learning. These are my sisters. They're a lot bigger now. These are some of the people that I met on my mission who also struggle with this, and I learned from them as well. And this is my wife, Rachel, who's been my biggest supporter in this, cheering me on as I'm learning how to play the piano, as I'm learning how to be sexually healthy. Now, in order to do this, sometimes when we make a mistake, these are some questions that I found helpful in order to be able to correct those mistakes. Where did I go wrong? What adjustments in my environment do I need to make? What adjustments in my attitude do I need to make? How can I enlist the help of others? And what am I going to do next? Now, this list is not a comprehensive list. It's just some ideas. But ask yourself, where did I go wrong? And because I've asked myself these questions, I have a healthy sexual lifestyle that I live myself. One of the things is that I have a flip phone. I discovered for myself that right now I'm not ready to have a smartphone. I'm just not. And so I live my life. I chose to have a flip phone. Me and my wife, we like to watch TV programming that doesn't promote unhealthy sexuality. If we find something indecent, we turn it off. It's not always TVG that we watch, but I think you get the point. This healthy lifestyle includes food and exercise, trying to keep my body clean. Because if I have less stress, then I'm less likely to want to emotionally cope through pornography. I listen to good music. The most underrated form of pornography, in my opinion, it comes through music. if there's music that is not in harmony with healthy sexual living, that promotes pornographic themes, it's probably not something to listen to. You're like, sure, but it's just music. It affects you. It has affected me. I talk to people, and I talk to my wife especially about how I'm feeling, what I'm doing. I talk to my parents occasionally about how I'm feeling, what I'm doing. I'm an adult now, so that's a little different. But I still do that. And I'm talking to you right now, and this is part of my healthy sexual lifestyle. Talking to you about this. I have restrictions on my iPad. I go through the Fortify program. It's in your booklet, by the way. Towards the end, you'll see an advertisement for it. I love it. I'd recommend it. It might not be for everybody. And I try to keep myself spiritually healthy with prayer, scripture study, writing in a journal. Occasionally, I'm still pretty terrible at that. But this is the lifestyle I've chosen to live right here. Now, I have a third myth, and I'm going to run through this one really quickly. Some people say, yeah, well, this will all go away when I get married or have a sexual partner, if I have a way to escape it. But once again, healthy sexuality is not an event, it's a lifestyle. And the way that pornography influences us is it teaches us that people are objects. Somebody that mentioned to me about this is like, sure, but I can use sex as a release. I won't have to turn to pornography because I'll have someone that I can use to help me get through those difficult times. If you are using sex as a way to emotionally cope, using that person, you don't understand healthy sexuality, which is founded on good, healthy relationships that turn outwards rather than inwards. The opposite of what pornography teaches. My last myth that I want to mention here, and I'm running out of time. Some people think, I'll always struggle with pornography or I will never struggle with pornography. Two completely opposite things. Always an addict, once an addict, always an addict. Or, hey, I've never had a problem with it, I will never have a problem with it. But the truth is, and I actually have to go, I won't be able to go all the way back. If you look at your healthy sexuality spectrum, we're all on that spectrum, meaning we can all go forward or we can all turn back. This is where I am right now. I have a beautiful wife named Rachel, who you'll hear in just a second. And I have a beautiful baby. And we live a healthy sexual lifestyle, at least striving for it. And this is a happy ending to my story. But it still continues. If I'm not diligent, I could fall back. So everyone is susceptible to this. And that's because pornography, the real person to blame here for people having problems is the pornography industry. Because it's an industry, it's a business. They're trying to market, they're trying to get into your homes. They're trying to market to you. And so if you don't have your guard up, you can fall. Now, that's not to scare you, but I truly do hope that each one of you has learned something today about that. Now, I'm going to turn the rest of the time over to my beautiful wife, Rachel, who's going to talk about the parents' role in recovery.
Let me see if, there we go. Just making sure that works. Thanks. Okay, so to start off, I'm just going to jump right in. Another excuse to show a picture of our cute baby. I am a mom to a 9-month-old, almost 10-month-old. So compared to most of you guys here, I consider myself a junior parent. But that being said, I speak today from my experiences, but also in watching people very close to me struggle with this, struggle with pornography in their relationships. So our first myth that we're going to address is that parents are in charge of their teen's recovery. It is so hard to watch someone you love struggle with pornography, especially as a parent who is responsible for the well-being of their child. Sorry, I'm going to try not to get emotional. Being a mom has made me so weak when it comes to tears. You think, how could this happen? Was this my fault? How long has this really been going on? And probably a million other questions. And then the guilt sets in, and a whole rush of emotions. Some of these emotions could be fear, shame, embarrassment, acceptance maybe, heartache, blame, love, anger, sympathy, or maybe even empathy. I know that, or a nasty combination of all of the above. I mean, it happens. I know that when Zachary first opened up to me about his struggle, I felt all the questions and all the emotions. And then, by some miracle, my mind went completely blank, which absolutely never happens. And it was a lot to process. But when he opened up to me, I was able to just listen and thank him and tell him that I loved him. And over time, I was able to process all of those emotions as we kept talking and kept discussing it. I was blessed at that time in not letting my emotions get the best of me, because it's when we let our emotions take over and take control that we often react in a negative way, and we harm the other person in a relationship, especially when we're talking about a parent and teen relationship, where one side of this relationship, the teen, is still learning how to handle all of their emotions and still learning and developing. A common reaction that I've seen with parents is to go into mom and dad will fix this mode. Don't worry, we'll fix this, and take control of the situation. The problem with this mindset is that you often put yourself and your teen in an environment and a relationship where it's difficult to work together and still be accountable for your actions. Teens have a hard time being accountable for their actions because mom and dad have taken control, and parents justify their actions because they love their kid. Of course they're going to do whatever it takes. And they have this mentality of whatever it takes, we're going to get rid of this. I've seen this with a really close friend of mine, a very dedicated mom who jumped into action and did everything she could, everything he needed if he felt like, with her son, if he felt like he needed a bike so that he could exercise and replace this bad habit of pornography. She did whatever it took. And as a result, her son ended up having a more passive approach at his recovery because mom was taking care of it all. And over time, when he tried all these things to replace this bad habit and it didn't work, they both became frustrated, and it became really hard to communicate effectively and to work together. She was trying her best, but he felt like she was too controlling, and she loved her son, so of course she was just trying. And overall, it was unhealthy. They were trying to put out the flames when they should have been focusing on why it even started in the first place, or what was fueling the fire. They both had good intentions, but were approaching it in the wrong way. The truth here is that parents can love, support, and help their teens in recovery. Parents can't control or save them from their struggles. To illustrate this truth, I would like to compare this to driving a car. This is 15-year-old Rachel and my sweet dad, who took me to the DMV when I was 15 to get my permit. And to my surprise, when I asked him if I could drive home, he let me. Having never driven before in a car. But I had watched him drive, I had studied, and I wanted so badly to be able to drive successfully. And he wanted that for me too. So he got in the passenger seat and reminded me about all the rules of the road, and I drove. I will never forget this drive home because I remember feeling so overwhelmed. How was I supposed to look ahead, but also look in my mirrors, use my blinker, remember to use my blinker, and make sure I wasn't going too fast? Felt like I had to watch so many different things, which is crazy because now it seems like second nature. But at the time, it was very scary and very overwhelming. But I got so much comfort in knowing that my dad was in the passenger seat with an extra eye, looking out for any danger that I might have missed. He was coaching and cheering me on the whole time, even though he was grasping very tightly onto the handle and the side of his seat. We made it home safely somehow. Parents, your teens need you to be in the passenger seat, coaching and cheering them on. You can give them that safe environment where they can feel comfortable to tackle hard things, to overcome struggles, even though it's scary and it's overwhelming. It's also important to note that I wanted to drive. Parents can't sit in the passenger seat and try to take the wheel and steer for their teen until they find that desire to drive. Instead, parents can teach, love, support, and help their teens see that driving, even though it's scary, or in our case, tackling hard things and overcoming pornography and struggles is worth it in the end. They'll get there, I promise. I know as a parent how hard it is to be patient. It's just important that you stay there and you invite them to keep trying. Imagine if my dad would have let me drive home by myself without him in the car. There's no way that I wouldn't have been able to make it home without either crashing or breaking the law, suffering consequences that would have impacted my future. Same goes for having the mindset to just let your teen do it on their own. They can figure it out. Shame hurts, but love heals. Parents, of course you love your teen, and teens, of course you love your parents. Love and connection is exactly what will help both of you overcome struggles. So to review, parents, you can be a safe place for your teen. You can provide healthy boundaries and structure to help them. Boundaries are so important because they help create that safe environment for you both. You can influence your teen, but you're not responsible for the outcome. Remember that they always are accountable for their choices. Teens, let your parents help you. I promise they can help you, because no therapist, friend, or support person will ever trump the power of a parent's love and support. Teens, remember that you need to take charge of your recovery. You own this. No one else can do this for you. And remember that you can recover from pornography use with help, love, and support. Our next myth is that if parents install filters, then their teens will be protected from pornography. To start off, I want to say that we are not against filters. We love filters. But filters are like bug spray. You can spray it, but a lot of times you're still going to get bit. And the truth here is that filters are necessary, but they're not foolproof. We love filters because they're the best way to prevent unwanted exposure to pornography and still be able to use technology. Think about all the ways that we intake media and information. Zach gave a lot of examples there. We have books, media, podcasts, apps, TV, social media. I mean, the list goes on and on. And if your child, if your teen doesn't have access to it, then unfortunately their friend does. If they want to find it, they will. It is more effective to educate your teens and facilitate a relationship with open dialogue and conversation to help them understand how to be more sexually healthy, so that when they do encounter pornography, they'll know how to face it and how to avoid it. And if they do struggle with it, use filters as a tool. But if you fail to educate them more about healthy sexuality, they'll be missing out on all this empowering knowledge. Myth: parents who don't struggle with pornography use can't relate to their teens who do. Now, this one really hits home for me. I've not experienced this in a parent-teen relationship, but the time that I felt like I could really relate to Zachary is when I was pregnant and I was craving a caramel sundae from McDonald's. We were driving home, and it was really late at night. We'd already passed McDonald's, and the craving hit, and I needed my caramel sundae, and it had to be from McDonald's. Zachary was not really excited about turning the car around, and I remember telling him, "You just don't understand. You don't understand what it feels like to experience these cravings. I literally can't think of anything else. I have to have my caramel sundae." And he turned to me and he said, yeah, I do understand, actually. And it felt like it finally clicked. Like I finally understood or got a glimpse into kind of what he struggles with. And it was a huge moment for me, and I've learned so much since then. But the truth here is that we are all human beings and not exempt from struggle. Just think about how many people here have ever felt depressed or anxious, faced a major failure, been disappointed when they made a mistake. I mean, we all have struggle in our life. None of us are exempt. And the way that we can overcome struggle is by communicating and connecting with each other. Your team may be frustrated that you don't understand what it feels like, just like how I was frustrated that Zach didn't understand pregnancy cravings. But that doesn't mean that you don't struggle with other things in your life. Share these experiences. Share your struggles with your teen. It is so empowering and so powerful for a teen to realize that their parent also struggles with things too. You know, some things that you could talk about. Share about a time when you failed at something, a time when you made a huge mistake, a time when you were really embarrassed. Someone who really influenced you as a kid. The friends you had growing up, were they the good ones? Or were they the good ones? Were they good friends, or did you have bad friends that influenced you? And any of those awkward teen moments, if you haven't completely blocked those out of your memory, those are important to share. By sharing these struggles, you help teach your teen the necessary tools to overcome struggles, whether you've struggled with pornography or not. The last myth that I want to address is that if I was a better parent, then my teen wouldn't be struggling with pornography. The truth here is that blame and regret can prevent us from progressing towards a healthy relationship. Now, I have a close friend of mine who blames her going back to work when her son was in kindergarten as the reason why he struggles with pornography, which is completely crazy. And it's not true at all. She has felt so much heartbreak and guilt that she feels like she has to go back and find that one event, that one seemingly mistake that caused this to happen. And it's not true. She's carrying around this guilt and blame for her son's now an adult for most of his life. And the truth is that even if it were true, or even if she could change it, she can't. I mean, it's in the past. We have to move on and remember that you, as parents, do your best. Blame hurts, but love heals. It is never too late to make changes in your parenting relationship. It's connection, love, understanding, and communication that will help you overcome this struggle or any other struggle that you as parents or you as teens will encounter in your life. Everything we've talked about today is the core of what Reach 10 believes. In our opening, Paula shared about reaching out to 10 people, which is exactly where Reach 10 gets its name. Reaching out to at least 10 people, and imagine the difference it could make. We work towards teaching and providing resources to help us eliminate shame and connect more with each other. Along with other resources and blog posts, you can go to our website and we will be posting our presentation instead of giving handouts for you today. And we also invite you to connect with us on social media. Thank you so much for coming and being with us today.